Hi, this is Melinda, and in this video we're going to talk about project settings in Adobe's Premiere Pro CS4. When you first start a project in Adobe Premiere Pro, it asks you to choose the sequence settings for your first sequence or your first collection of edited footage. And by default, Premiere Pro always gives you, the first time through, this default option of AVC HD anamorphic video. This is a high-def widescreen video format, and we can see that by looking over here at the descriptions over here on the right-hand side of the screen. If you have filmed your footage with a standard mini DV camera, chances are your camera has not shot footage in high def. There are a few cameras that do, and it'll say on your camera if it's a high-def camera. And even those that do are usually not at this high resolution here. So we're going to go forward with the premise that we've shot footage that is not high-def and take a look at sequence settings. So by default, Adobe picks this, and a lot of times we think the software is picking the best choice for us by default, so we go ahead and we click OK. And I'm going to click OK right now to show you what happens. So there's no indication here to me that I'm going to have a problem. But what I'm going to show you is I'm going to take this video, or rather this still image, this picture of myself that I imported earlier, and drop it into the timeline. And it looks very tiny here. And if I look up here in the description of that image, I see that it's 353 pixels square. And if this was the proper settings, this picture should be about twice as big as what it is. If I take this movie, we have this mymovie.wmv file that I imported in. It's at 720 by 480 pixels. And if I drop that into the timeline, and we will move the playback head forward just a little bit here so we can get to the movie, we see again that it's very tiny. Now 720 by 480 should be filling up this screen because that's the standard DV size. So say we've got our movie all edited and we're like, oh my gosh, why is this so tiny? Well, the first place we go to check to see did we accidentally pick the wrong sequence settings is up here in Premiere. Making sure we have the sequence selected. There's a yellow line around it down here. And go up to Sequence and Sequence Settings. And if I look here, my first clue is my editing mode is AVC HD anamorphic, which was, as we know, we intentionally picked that for the purposes of this demonstration. But this is my first clue that I may have accidentally picked a high-def codec. I can also take a look down here. Pixel aspect ratio should be set to DV NTSC, and the display format here should say 30 frames per second drop frame. And of course, as we can see in these settings, it doesn't. And we can also see that we can't change that. I mean, what's done is done. We cannot change settings once we've been editing. I'm going to cancel out of this and show you how to solve the problem. If I output this footage right now, the problem is my final product is going to have these huge black bars all the way around it, which is not what I want. So we're going to assume that this footage is all done, it's edited, and it's the way I want it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go up to File, and I'm going to add a new sequence to this project. File, New, Sequence. And see, we have the same sequence setting dialog box that we saw when we set up our first sequence. I'm going to go down to DV NTSC, which is the setting that I should have picked in the first place, and choose my setting. Now, unless my footage is widescreen when I filmed it, and I know that it was widescreen, the standard choice here is standard 48 kilohertz, and the kilohertz is for the audio settings. And we can give our sequence a name down here, so I could call it Fixed, because I'm going to show you how to fix the problem. Now we see up here in the timeline I have the original sequence 01 and I have this fixed one that is empty. I'm on the fixed sequence, and if I go up to Sequence and Sequence Settings just to confirm, I now see that my settings are right. DV NTSC 29.97 frames per second, which is equivalent to the 30 frames per second drop frame time code. And I see that my aspect ratio here is 4:3, which is standard or non-widescreen, and I see that here as well. We'll click OK. Now, this is pretty tricky here. So I have sequence 1 all done, edited, ready to go. I'm going to click on sequence 1 in my project clip bin here, and I'm going to drag the sequence, the wrong one, or the one with the incorrect settings, into the new sequence with the right settings. Notice the photo is now much bigger than it was. And let me just zoom this up a little bit for us so we can see the whole thing. And now I see my video is now filling the screen. Notice that I can't edit this, right? You can't see two separate clips here, one for the photo and one for the video, because that is all back here in sequence 1 on this other tab. So you have to make sure all your editing is done here before you try this trick. And I drag that sequence in, and now it's corrected. And then when I get ready to export, I'm going to export this sequence. So I see it over here. This is what I'm exporting, is this particular sequence, because that's the one that was selected when I started. And I can see that it's filling the screen the way I expect it to. So that's how to fix a Premiere Pro project when you have accidentally chosen the wrong project settings, or wrong sequence settings rather, at the beginning, and you've already edited your project. This is the quick fix. Create a new sequence with the right settings, and then pull the sequence with the problem in it into the new sequence, and you're ready to go from there.